bold journalism.
But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
Exposing lawlessness.
Drew Hernandez, who is ideological.
Finding the truth.
And use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines. Welcome to the show. My name is Drew Hernandez, and these are the front lines. Here's what we've got on the show today. The baby killers were out in full force over the weekend, and I got an up-close look at the start of what's shaping up to be the summer of rage, plus the latest on the two deadly mass shootings, one in California and one in New York, and why the mainstream media is blaming one of them on Tucker Carlson. You saw that coming. Frontlines, by the way, is now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other streaming services. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave a 5-star review right now. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, smash that like button, hit the notification bell, and share this video everywhere. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or anywhere else, please reshare this transmission right now. My name is Drew Hernandez, and you are now on the front lines. All right, the summer of rage, according to a report from Reuters, U.S. abortion rights activists start the summer of rage with Saturday protests. And we saw this in D.C., we saw this in Austin, Texas, and even in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona. I myself decided to go to the summer of rage at the Phoenix State Capitol, and people were absolutely losing their minds. Here's the article that picked up on my coverage from over the weekend. Shocking. Pro-abortion protesters hold fetus equals good snack sign and chants vulgar slogans. There's the picture. These were Satanists, by the way, that were at the Arizona State Capitol on Saturday. They had pentagrams on their T-shirts. Some of them had their eyes blacked out, wearing black contacts. But literally, these people want to eat babies. They want to eat fetuses. They're cannibals. There they are right there with the blacked out eyes, with the pentagram on his chest. Obviously, he's wearing contacts. But these people worship Satan. They worship Lucifer. And they're the same people that want to murder babies, mutilate the genitals of children. They want to eat babies. They want to eat fetuses. It's like, dude, you sound crazy. No, I don't. They're the crazy ones. They're walking around with signs saying that a fetus equals a good snack. Yes, these people are psychopaths. They're evil, they're demonic, they're satanic. And yes, these are the ones that show up to these protests and they advocate for the murdering and the slaughtering of babies inside of the womb and outside of the womb. It's pretty graphic, isn't it? But these are the Luciferians, the Satanists. And it's crazy when you think about it, right? Because the United States of America, with this current administration, is failing to feed its own babies with the baby food shortage. So I guess now we're just going to eat them? Well, I guess according to these people, if they can't slaughter the baby, they're just going to eat the baby. I mean, these are some serious Old Testament times, man. Like, this is where we are in 2022, where these people not only want to slaughter babies, they want to eat them. Fetus equals a good snack. Talk about total depravity, dude. Total depravity. And people are always like, oh, you just sound so religious whenever you talk about that. I was like, dude, I don't know. Whenever I go to one of these protests or whenever they're organizing, it was Planned Parenthood organized, by the way, in Phoenix, Arizona at the state capitol. Planned Parenthood set up the whole thing. It was funded by them. The media was there. But they want to eat the babies. Yes, because they're evil and evil people do stuff like this, and it's just, the morality is totally gone. Well, by the way, while I was there over the weekend, some pro-life advocates showed up to stand against Roe v. Wade, to stand against slaughtering and eating babies, and the demonic demons started to manifest and literally lose their minds. Take a look.
You guys gonna touch me?
No! We're really taking away 63 million babies.
So that's one of the videos, and it's interesting when you watch the males, right? These pro-abortion male psychopaths. It's always like, oh, if you don't have a vagina, then you don't have an opinion. If you don't have a uterus, then you shouldn't have an opinion. But you always get like these cucked out dudes at like these organized events, the Planned Parenthoods with the pink t-shirts on, and they're literally like berating, getting in the face of a woman that is standing for women, saying, why don't you support women? Why don't you support women? Just totally like degrading her being a female. Oh, you're a closet homosexual. You're a closet homosexual. Like, oh, is anybody going to touch me? And it's like they say, we're the freaks, we're the extremists. Like, no, they are. These people are perverts. They want to eat babies, and they berate and degrade women that come out and stand up for life and other women being born. Men do it. You saw the men berating her, screaming in her face, talking down on her. Oh, but we care so much about women's rights. Oh, toxic masculinity. Only if it's coming from one side do we care about it. Well, here's another video of when the pro-life activists showed up. These people literally lost their minds. Take a look.
Trying to suck your own because none of these will get you off. None of these will get you off.
You're spitting. You're spitting.
Yeah, that's the wrong video, but listen, even the people there at the Capitol were spitting in the face of individuals. Spitting in their face because they have a difference of an opinion than they do. So when the pro-life individuals showed up, these people like went ballistic, literally went ballistic. It's insane. Take a look. All right, I guess we don't have that video. So if you guys want to see the video, go to my Twitter, Drew H Live. It has over 300,000 views. And you guys can see that these people are losing their minds. They're freaks. They're screaming off the top of their heads. And it's like literally insane that these people are just losing it. And you could see them losing it. I mean, take a look at some of the photos I got from over the weekend as well. You can literally see some of these parents brought their children, and the child is holding a sign, and it has a pentagram on it, and the child is wearing an ACAB t-shirt. That means all cops are B-words. That's an Antifa slogan that the far left has adopted, but these people are bringing their parents to this stuff, and their t-shirts have far left ideologies on them, pentagrams on the shirts. I mean, it is absolutely demonic, these people are. I mean, you take a look at this. There's another one from my buddy Kalen that was with me over the weekend, and you could literally see that it's grooming. Ally in training. Literally a groomer, literally grooming children. It's disgusting. I mean, you take a look at what these people are doing, and it's absolutely appalling what these people have done. And by the way, over the weekend, during the Summer of Rage, the New York mayor has been calling pro-life groups radical extremists. Yes, he's there marching with these individuals, these baby killers that want to kill babies, and now they're calling you, if you're pro-life, if you're someone that upholds life and loves babies, you are now designated an extremist. You see how this works? You see how they title you whatever they want you to be? You see how whatever label they put over you, they could just do that, and then soon enough, the federal government will be right alongside of it. These politicians, there's the Brooklyn Bridge, they're all marching to kill babies, slaughter babies, and the Satanists want to eat them too, but you could literally clearly see that these people don't care about life, they don't regard life, and anyone that does regard life, that cares about a baby, that cares about a baby in the womb or outside of the womb, if you're pro-life, this is coming. You're going to be designated a domestic terrorist, an extremist as well. I don't know, that sounds kind of crazy. No, it's not. It's not crazy because you have ideologies, you have beliefs that they designate as extreme. It doesn't matter whether your belief is extreme or not. It's whatever they define it to be. So if you're pro-life right now, you will be designated a domestic terrorist, you'll be designated as extreme, designated as a right-wing extremist. And why? Why will they do that to you? Oh, because you believe, this is what they're going to say. They're going to say this. You believe that I shouldn't have the choice to be able to abort my baby anywhere during the trimesters of pregnancy or even post-birth? You're going to tell me that I can't do that? What if that puts my life at risk? What if that puts me at risk? What if something bad happens to me? You're going to tell me what I can or cannot do with my body? That's going to put my life at risk. You're an extremist trying to tell me what I can or cannot do with my body. You're putting me in danger. It's coming. If you're pro-life, they're going to designate you as an extremist. That's exactly what these people are going to do. That's exactly what they do, and they lose their minds. Well, I told you last week about the baby formula shortage, and believe me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Food shortages are just around the corner, and looking to stock up and save money without sacrificing quality. Then you need to check out Good Ranchers. Their prices on 100% American meat have remained affordable, and their quality beats the store every single time. Right now, you save money, get steakhouse quality, and donate $50 to TPUSA by visiting goodranchers.com/TPUSA. You'll help make what we do here possible and support American ranches at the same time. Make your $50 donation today. Go to www.goodranchers.com/TPUSA to get the quality you've been missing. They take the guesswork out of the grocery store, and they take your everyday purchases and make them meaningful. Remember to use the code TPUSA to donate $50 to our missions. Combat inflation with fair-priced American meat delivered by Good Ranchers today. Make sure to do that. And listen, I don't know what's taking place in the United States of America, but I mean, here we are, it's midterm season. Things are getting amplified. Things are picking up. We're starting to see that there's mass shootings taking place coast to coast. We're starting to see all these things begin to rise. I mean, all of a sudden, Roe v. Wade, that's about to be overturned, and the Supreme Court decides to leak it. And now here we are with mass violence again. Riots are back in Chicago as well. We're starting to see mass destabilization in the United States of America yet again. And here we are, where this is going to continue to happen because these people want to destabilize the society that we find ourselves in. I mean, it's no surprise that these people are doing this. It's no surprise that these things begin to all happen all at once. And it's crazy because you see the federal government, you see the states take advantage of tragedies. I'm not saying that these shootings are staged. What I'm saying is they're not going to let a good crisis go to waste. And when bad things like this happen, you can't sit there and believe that these politicians and these leftist psychopaths that just seem to care about you and care about your family, they laugh at you at White House correspondent dinners. Don't think that these people care about you. When tragedy strikes in the United States of America, they don't care about you. They don't care about you at all. Well, over the weekend, we've seen some more tragedies take place. In Buffalo, there was a mass shooter, if you haven't heard by now, but the Post-Millennial reports a Buffalo mass shooter threatened shooting at a high school, and he was known to the police and underwent a mental health evaluation. Peyton Gendron, who has been accused of opening fire inside a Buffalo, New York supermarket, was known to New York State authorities for over a year as a potential threat to society, it's been revealed. Gendron, who just recently turned 18, went into a supermarket in a predominantly black neighborhood in Buffalo on Saturday, wearing tactical armor and armed heavily. He started firing into the crowd, killing 10 people and injuring 3 others. All but 2 of the people hit by Gendron were black. It was obviously racially motivated. Gendron had reportedly threatened to carry out a shooting at a high school around the time of graduation. A law enforcement official who spoke on condition of being anonymous told the AP. People were calling them out, saying that this is not enough. How did this happen? People on social media, pundits taking to the airwaves. Apparently, President Biden is on his way, announced on Twitter yesterday that Jill and I will travel to Buffalo on Tuesday to grieve with the community that lost 10 lives in a senseless and horrific mass shooting. People have been criticizing the president for not doing the same for the Waukesha massacre, for not doing the same when it's not black people being targeted. It seems like the federal government only cares when it's a certain group of people that are being targeted. I'm not saying that one people mean more than the other. What I'm saying is they're the ones that act like that. They're the ones who pick and choose what color of people mean more when it comes to a tragedy. That's what I'm saying, and that's why I gave you guys this kind of little breakdown before I started getting into the story, is don't believe these politicians. These politicians don't care about you. They don't love you or your family. They take advantage of you. Well, here's a perfect example of that. Apparently the murderer's manifesto that he left behind, people are coming out and trying to blame Tucker Carlson for being extreme, and his ideologies are the reason why these people are coming out and murdering individuals. They're trying to blame Fox News, trying to blame Tucker Carlson as the reason as to why these white supremacists are increasing and getting more emboldened to go after black people and kill them and murder them. No. Apparently during all of these investigations taking place, in the killer's manifesto, he actually attacks Fox News. He attacks 21st Century Fox for hiring Jews because he's obviously anti-Semitic. So he actually was targeting Fox, 21st Century Fox, but obviously the far left is going to pounce on this all over Twitter, and they're going to come out and start to say that, oh, this was because of white people, because of Fox News, because of Tucker Carlson. This is what I'm trying to get you to see, is they don't let a good crisis go to waste. They don't let it go. And they won't let it go. All these pundits on Twitter that start to immediately mobilize and go after Tucker Carlson. Here's someone that tweeted this hours ago, yesterday. More blood on the hands of Tucker Carlson and Fox News. This killer used their racist talking points to justify killing 10 people. Carlson won't stop because, as he explained to the New York Times, it's good for ratings. Lives be damned, as Carlson will be at Judgment Day. You see how they immediately pounce on their political opponents? This is what I'm trying to tell you. When tragedy like this happens, these people don't care. They don't care about the outcome of you or your family or your community that's devastated, that's experiencing some kind of tragedy in your community, whether it's New York or California, wherever it may be across the globe. These career professional politicians, they take advantage of it. They don't let a good crisis go to waste. They do it immediately because they know that there's desperate people that are vulnerable. It's a vulnerable and desperate moment. People are angry. People are pissed. Yes, vicious hate crime. Yes, targeting black people. Yes, it's evil. It's wrong. It should not be happening. But do you think for 1 second that the far left and these professional politicians are going to jump on your side because they care about you, or because it's a good opportune time to push a political agenda? Because immediately when this stuff happens, what do you see from the far left? Oh, all of a sudden President Biden cares? All of a sudden President Biden cares and he's going to show up to Buffalo, New York to comfort the families, but they didn't do that for Waukesha. Why? Because these people are race baiters. They want to pin blacks and whites against each other. They want this taking place in the United States of America. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it at all. And don't think that they actually care. Why do these politicians only care about one group of people, but not the other? I'm not saying that nobody is less valuable than the other. Every human life is valuable. What I'm saying is they view it that way. They're the ones who view certain human lives more valuable than others. They're the ones who pick and choose who they're going to support. If there's a community in tragedy, if there's people killing each other, if it's a hate crime, if it's targeted, these career politicians, they're the ones who pick and choose. Oh, they mean more than the other people. It's not me. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Candace Owens said the same thing on Twitter and went viral the other day. All the woke tards in her comments like, you're making this political. No, they make it political. They're the ones who bring their politics into these situations. They immediately call for gun control. They immediately go after their political opponents. They use these opportunities to literally strike more division within the communities. And they've always done this. This is nothing new. It's nothing new at all. What I'm trying to tell you is that they exploit these things. They exploit these things because they know that they can get away with it. They exploit these things because they know that they can further divide people. And that's exactly what they want to do. Well, joining me now is the great Ian Miles Cheong of Rebel News. My good friend, thank you for joining me, Ian. Ian, What is your take on this? I had a huge rant right now. I mean, obviously the shooting is horrific. We haven't even gotten into what happened in California. We're just talking about the New York Buffalo shooting. What was your immediate reaction? What's your take on this right now?
I was pretty horrified, I mean, we've seen this happen time and again. And anytime it happens, whenever we find out who did it, the media suddenly clams up about it. Like they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the causes. Instead, they go directly towards guns and how guns need to be taken out of the hands of Americans. How, what's the term they like to use? They call it weapons of war. That's what Biden called it today. Even though it's weapons that people use for self-defense every single day. It's weapons that keep people safe. He calls it weapons of war, as if this guy walked into the store, armed with an M249 or something. No, he just used a regular rifle, anything anyone can buy. If it's in the UK and a guy used a knife to do something like this, would they call it weapons of war? I mean, that's the question, right? It's like, what else is he trying to take away from us? What are these guys trying to do? How can they use this situation, this tragedy, to their advantage? I mean, they like to say, never let a tragedy go to waste, right? They even said it themselves. Like Psaki liked to say that, publicly. So that's what we need to be vigilant about. How can they take this away? I mean, obviously it's a tragedy, and it's dreadful. And we need to look into the causes of this. We need to look into this guy's background. I mean, we saw that he released a manifesto, and it's got symbols all over it. It's got his love of white supremacy, and it's quite similar to the same group of people that America's sending $40 billion to. It's got the Azov Battalion symbol over there. So that's my question, right? That's my question. It's like, who is this guy? What did he do? And why don't we look at the actual causes of the violence instead of saying, hey, let's take people's guns away? And
it's a fact that they knew about him. It's a fact that they literally knew, law enforcement knew that this guy was a violent threat to the community, already made threats to his, I don't know if it was his own high school or a different high school. So it's just interesting. I mean, here we are in a midterm year. All of a sudden, these mass shootings start to happen. I'm not taking away from the people that died. What I want people to understand, regardless of your politics, do not think for 1 second that these politicians care. They don't care, Ian. They like you said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. They'll exploit it. They want to further divide blacks and whites, these race baiters. They want to pin people against each other. I mean, the perfect example, Ian, is they immediately go after Tucker Carlson. They immediately go after Fox News. And it's like, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that they don't care. It's the opportune time to, further, pin races against each other.
That's right. It's divisive, right? It serves their agenda. It's for them to say, oh, look at those Republicans. It's those Republican policies that are the reason why this happened, why he was able to kill so many. And yet, this happened in a blue state. It happened in a blue state where such guns are not even allowed. So you got to ask, whose policies are it that are failing? Why is it always happening in blue states? Why is it always happening under the watch of Democrats? It's not like this happened in, say, Florida. It didn't happen there. No, it happened in New York, and it's going to keep happening in places like that. And it's funny, but maybe it's not that funny. Actually, it's quite tragic that this plays out every single weekend in places like Chicago, for instance, or Philadelphia. Shootings happen. In Chicago alone. I mean, people lose track to the point where they don't even report it in the newspapers anymore, where 20 people can be shot, over a series of different events in a single night, and no one cares because, it's just violence in Chicago. And yet it's like several mass shootings happen every single weekend, and no one seems to bother about it. But this one issue happens, and obviously it is a real mass shooting and not something that's gang related. But how is it that no one cares that when a shooting is gang related and children are shot? Why is it that no one gives a damn about it?
And Ian, not only that, no one cares when it's a church. I mean, here's the post-millennial breaking: 1 killed, 5 injured in California church shooting after the individual killed somebody. They wrapped him up. They were able to bring him down, wrap him up with electrical cords. I mean, they hog-tied him. This is getting no coverage in the media. They're not talking about it. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about what happened in Buffalo, but it doesn't get the equal coverage. That's my point, Ian, is like they don't care. They don't care about us because it happened in a church. They're not going to talk about it because that's their political opponents.
Yep. It happened in Waukesha. I mean, now it wasn't a gun that was used. It was an SUV. It happened in Waukesha. A guy drives a car into a crowd, a Christmas parade. And does anybody care? Does anyone care that he did that? No, the media is like, oh, the SUV drove itself into it as if it was a mistake, an accident. Does Biden come and visit them the day after? No, he doesn't. They make an excuse for him. They say, oh, he would have made it too difficult because of the logistics of it. Let's send his wife instead, like a week later. Yeah, they just don't care. They really don't care. But when it serves their agenda, when it serves them, for him to go in front of a crowd of people, of mourners, people who are suffering, people who are hurting, if he's able to go there and then pin the blame on his enemies, his political opponents, he can say, look, Tucker Carlson's the one responsible. He'll do it. And these people are vultures. They're opportunists. And they don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about anybody. You think they care about Ukraine? No. For them, everything is an opportunity to further their own agenda.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen this countless times. If it's a shooting in a church, they won't talk about it. That's their political opponents. If it's a shooting from a white person, oh, it's blasted all over the media. If it's a white guy killing black people, but if it's vice versa, nobody cares. Or this happened over the weekend too. Riots again breaking out in Chicago. A 16-year-old boy was shot and killed at Millennium Park, and the Chicago declared a riot. Here's a couple clips from that.
They finna get run over by these civilian cars, bro. Look at this, yo. So they ain't throwing nothing at that car because the car was waving at them. They throwing chairs. I don't know how the f they getting hold of chairs. They throwing chairs and everything at cars. One car almost just ran y'all kid over, bro.
There it is. You see, like whenever it's someone that fits their agenda, the riots come. It's all over the media, but the church doesn't get any coverage, Ian.
None whatsoever. And is the media talking about this guy, this shooter, his agenda? Are they talking about his manifesto? Like I said earlier, they only care about the weapon that he used. He used what, an AR-15. So that's what's being talked about because that's the gun they want to take away from people. If he was using a handgun, they'd probably be more quiet about it. If it was a knife, they wouldn't even talk about it. Now, because he used that particular symbol and his views were espoused by Brandon Tarrant, who was, as we all know, was inspired by the Azov battalion in Ukraine. Back then, they reported on it because back then, those are the bad guys. But now they're trying to give them $40 billion and trying to claim that these are the good guys. I mean, you have the wives of these Azov Nazis showing up at the Pope's doorstep asking for his help. Now they're going to Boris Johnson to ask for people's help. Probably going to go to Biden's White House to ask him for help. And suddenly they're the good guys. So this guy's motivation, it's not even being talked about. It's not even being discussed. We can't even talk about it. Yesterday, immediately after his manifesto surfaced, guess what? All the Democrats were out in force on Twitter. The usual Bruin brigade. They were like, oh, there's actually zero connection between the symbol that he used and the symbol that Azov battalion uses. I mean, it was all over my feed. It was all over Twitter. And people tried to get me banned. They reported my tweet for saying he uses the same symbol. And it's literally the same symbol, obviously. Yeah. So, But it's like, okay, guys, like you are okay with calling these dudes Nazis. You're okay with saying that they train mass shooters and that they train extremists who commit these kinds of heinous acts. But now, because you want to give them $40 billion and not scare the American public about it, then, it's disinformation to point that out, to point out that they're the bad guys.
Absolutely. Only when it fits their agenda. That's who these people are. Everybody, make sure to go follow Ian Miles Cheong. He's on Twitter @StillGray. He's got a new YouTube channel and a YouTube show. It's pinned on the tweet on his Twitter, so make sure to go follow him. Check out his new show. It's good stuff. Ian, thank you for joining me, bro.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, here we are, America. This is it. This is it. This is the destabilization in the country that you now live in. These people don't care about you. They want to eat babies. and that's what they want to do. And by the way, TPUSA Live is on a short summer break to get ready for all the events we've got coming up. You can follow the TPUSA Live Instagram account for all their latest updates. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the Frontlines. I'll see you guys next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. Today is May 16th, 2022, and Anno Domine. Today's top headlines. The Buffalo, New York shooting. Absolutely horrific. We need to dig into this and dig into the insane ramblings of this manifesto. We're going to dig into it. Next, the Supreme Court. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. What does it mean? What's coming out? Third, India banning wheat exports. From Zero Hedge, we've got the full article. And finally, Ashley St. Clair over at Post Millennial has a new piece out all about her 2021 warning about a year ago on baby formula. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily.
We're still gathering the facts. Well, already the Justice Department has stated publicly that it is investigating the matter as a hate crime, racially motivated act of white supremacy and violent extremism. Hearts are heavy once again, but a resolve must never ever waver.
Our first story today, the mass shooting that took place in Buffalo. Now, keep in mind, this was not the only mass shooting that took place this past weekend in our country, in the wonderful country of the United States of America. Unfortunately, we've had multiple mass shootings. There was a mass shooting in Orange County, in California, outside a church. There was another mass shooting outside the Milwaukee Bucks game with 20 people shot there. It was for Buffalo, however, it was an 18-year-old, and it was a planned attack months in advance before driving 3 hours to shoot 10 people in a supermarket ambush motivated by hatred of black people. Police are interviewing his parents, as from Daily Mail, as 7 victims are named and suspect is placed on suicide watch. 18 years old. His name is Peyton Gendron of Conklin, New York. He's been charged with first-degree murder. Of course, he'll be charged with multiple counts of that, and he's expected to be indicted on additional charges. He pled not guilty and is being held without bail. He's due back in court on Thursday. We also know that he was live streaming the attack. And one name that I really want to put out here, that I want to make sure that everybody knows, is the name of Aaron Salter Jr. Aaron Salter Jr. was the security guard who stood his ground, who shot back at the assailant, at the active shooter, and came and didn't know what the situation was, didn't know who it was, knew nothing about the background, but knew that there was somebody with a long rifle that was shooting into his supermarket. And he stood, he waited in ambush. Now, I have actually watched the video myself. It is completely horrific. It is very gory. And I want to caution anybody that looks at that thing. But I did review the tape, and when I see it, you can see the security guard taking a position, and then while he's exchanging fire with the assailant, and we can't see, obviously we can't see what's in the video because it's from the shooter's perspective, but you have to understand what that security guard was doing was that he was using his own life to be and to have the ability to hold his ground and buy time for the people in that store to be able to get to safety. We will not know how many lives were saved because he took that action. He tried to stop that gunman, but he was fatally shot. One of the reasons that we've heard in recent reporting is that the gunman was wearing body armor. He's wearing ceramic plates, I believe, according to recent reports. Of course, all of this is still developing, and we want to make sure that we say that because we know more details will come out. But they're saying that he fired at the assailant, but because the assailant was wearing the body armor, he was not able to take him down and neutralize the threat. But one thing that we have also heard, and how many times have we seen this again and again in these stories, that this assailant This kid, he was 17 a year ago, 18 now, was known to law enforcement and was known to state authorities. And that is the absolutely horrific part. So Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, Attorney General Letitia James, where were you on this? What happened? How did the ball get dropped this bad? Because we were told a year ago he threatened to shoot up his school. He already had violent tendencies, already had obviously some kind of mental issue. He was on your radar, and yet you did nothing. You did nothing other than what? They wrote a report and they sent him back out, was still able to get a gun. And I've said this before, so people say, Poso, you're against red flag laws. But, so a red flag law, what is that? A red flag law means you can take someone's guns away from them if they have a mental issue, or you believe they have a mental issue, or if you have a problem with them. But what happens is, because there's no due process, typically in these red flag law situations, people's guns will be taken away without any due process whatsoever. And the people who can file these claims and these complaints, it varies depending on state and various propositions and proposals that have been put in for it. But when you're looking at a red flag law, there's no due process whatsoever. However, my response to this has always been, because people say, well, what about dangerous people? How do you prevent them from getting guns? There's something on the books called, in New York State, a 5150. We actually call it a 302 in Pennsylvania, my home state. But a 5150 means an involuntary medical hold. If you put someone on a 5150 because you believe they have these issues, anyone can do that. The police could have done that, and that would have prevented him from owning or purchasing a gun in the future. It's as simple as that. You have 5150. It's already in the books. It's perfectly fine to use. Why was it not used here? Why was the mental health system deficient in preventing him from being able to obtain this firearm? That's number one. Number two, why was he let off the radar? Why was he let off the hook? There are serious public policy answers that need to be brought to bear here. And we've looked at this resume, or this manifesto that he's put out. Completely insane, ranting about races, ranting about the environment at one point, calling himself an authoritarian leftist, saying he's a former communist. So, of course, you'll see people saying he's a conservative. The Rolling Stone says he's a mainstream member of the Republican Party. But that's not what he said in his own document. That's not what he said in his own words. And so, of course, people are using this, as always, to score political points rather than actually look at the system and find a way to help people. All right, next up, a case that is going to be decided by the Supreme Court. It was argued past October for the 2021 to 2022 term. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. What is this case? Robert Nash and Brandon Koch each applied for a concealed carry firearm license for the purpose of self-defense. The licensing officer denied both applications, finding that neither individual met the proper cause standard required by New York state law in order to issue a firearms license for general self-defense. Now, New York courts have defined proper cause as requiring the applicant to, quote, demonstrate a special need for self-protection distinguishable from that of the general community. Nash and Koch subsequently filed suit in federal court for violation of their Second Amendment rights for concealed carry permit. The district court dismissed the suit, citing the Second Circuit's ruling at an appeals court. On appeal, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit affirmed. The issue is, the case concerns a person's right to carry a concealed firearms for self-defense under the Second Amendment. The question presented, whether the state's denial of petitioners' applications for concealed carry licenses for self-defense violated the Second Amendment. The appeal is pending adjudication before the Supreme Court. This is a huge deal. This is a deal in New York State. This is a deal in a lot of states that require concealed carry permits for you to be able to, of course, concealed carry. But in some of these states, they issue a further guideline on top of it where they say you need to demonstrate what's called a, let me look up the case law here, a special circumstance, right? Or as in New York, they define it as proper cause. Do you have a proper cause to require the applicant to demonstrate a special need for self-protection distinguishable from that of the general community? And here's the question, right? Of course, the question then therein begs, Who has a special need for self-protection? Who has the right to self-protection in the United States of America? Do you have the right to self-protection? Do I have the right to self-protection? The answer is everyone has the right of self-protection, also known as the right of self-defense, because the right of self-defense is the inherent expression of the right to life. This is the combination of the right to life and the right to self-defense. The positive expression of you having a right to life, which goes back to natural law, which goes back to the Constitution, it goes back to the Declaration. Take it way even further than that, Roman law. You have a right to life, therefore you have a right to defend your life. No one has the right to take your life away. That's what self-defense is. We covered this so many times in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. You have the right, the express, exclusive, and unlimited right, in a sense, to defend yourself. Now, the question is, in many of these cases, like since I mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse, the question became, are you defending yourself excessively to the point where you're going above and beyond the force required to stop the immediate threat? And go listen to Andrew Branca or some of the other lawyers that are out there on self-defense law. They can get into the issue of that much more deeply than I can. But what I'm saying is the issue is always the point of you cannot use fatal force if someone is not threatening you with fatal force or fatal violence, right? You can't do that. Or only in special circumstances when someone comes into your home, they have a gun, when it's pointed at you, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many other issues there. But when it comes to self-defense, you always retain the right to self-defense. It is an inherent, natural right because it is the flip side. It is the positive expression of the right to life. It's simple as that. But the liberal United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit has pushed back on this and said that it is perfectly fine for the state of New York to require that only certain people with a proper cause and a special need for self-defense, a special need. And I've always thought that doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense because you don't know in these situations. That's how force of violence works. And I'm sorry, but that's the real world that we all live in and inhabit every day. You don't know when violence is going to happen, but you want to be ready, to be prepared, to be able to defend yourself, to defend your house, and defend your family. That is the point of the Second Amendment right there. It is the right of self-defense. It should be unlimited. And according to the Second Amendment, as written, it shall not be infringed. Next up today, wheat prices are soaring as India restricts exports. This is what we've told you about. We've talked about the food shortages that are coming, the impact of the events of Ukraine, Russia, the dust up there, the Dust Bowl situation that we might be seeing in the Midwest. You are going to see food scarcity like you have never seen before in the United States and around the world. Remember, this is what it was wheat prices that led to the Arab Spring, as Steve Cortez recently said today. Excellent point by Cortez. Follow him 100%. From ZeroHedge.com, wheat futures in Chicago jumped 5.9% to $12.47 a bushel Sunday evening after India restricted wheat exports to preserve its food security. Since the beginning of May, prices have skyrocketed nearly 20%. India's decision to halt wheat exports was announced on Friday. The government said it must safeguard domestic supplies amid heat waves that threaten crop yields. Directing the wheat exports through government channels would not only ensure fulfilling the genuine needs of our neighbors in food deficit countries, but also control inflation expectations. Understand what this means. And they're talking about, okay, I'm going through the article. Before the export ban, India was expected to be one of the top 10 wheat exporters in 2022. Removing India's expected wheat exports creates a massive hole in global supply and demand. Wheat prices, this is from Javier Blas, will rise further and quickly. This is bad news. This is a bad situation. You want to talk about social instability? This is going to lead to social instability. Sri Lanka right now, they're rioting in the streets. Food riots. You are going to see food riots across the world at this point. Huge issues. They're going to come up because of this. Remember, India is a very close trading partner with who? With Russia. India gets their oil, their energy needs predominantly from Russia. But India is also a partner with the United States against China. India and China are mortal enemies. India will never partner with China, and they are a natural ally for the United States against China. For Russia, on the other hand, they play a balancing act where they try to balance the interest of India with the interests of China. So Russia tries to play both sides as the middleman. This is the heartland theory. This is Mackinder. Understand the heartland theory. The three major continental powers of Asia and Eurasia: Russia, China, India. Those are the three major. Can't leave the Persians out. Can't leave the Persians out there. A lot of wild cards. But those are the three major powers on the Asian landmass. And if those three start to rumble, you would see the biggest fight that you've ever seen in human history. Now, we don't think that's going to happen, but understand the instability that we're looking at right now. The fact that China and the CCP are close in ties and close in deals with who? Pakistan. Pakistan, the mortal enemy of India. Why do you think, all right, I've talked about this before, but I'll bring it up again because we have to repeat it. Repetition is key to remembering. China is locking up the Uyghurs because Xinjiang province, that western province of Xinjiang, is in the way of China's One Belt, One Road program connecting them with Pakistan. They do not want the Uyghur population to interfere with their plans. And so they're going to build their One Belt, One Road straight across the territory of Xinjiang. And they're going to lock up the Uyghurs to get them out of the way. Why? Because Xinjiang is directly connected to Pakistan. That's China's ally. They want the oil from Saudi Arabia. They want the trade from the Gulf. That's the whole point of this. It's the Pakistan-China economic corridor. You're going to see rail. You're going to see pipelines. You're going to see roadways, superhighways connecting Pakistan and China. This is the new Silk Road. It's not just going to go to Rome. It's also going to go to the Middle East. And it cuts directly across Xinjiang. So this, of course, will enrich Pakistan. Pakistan will use that money to enrich their military and grow their military. And who's going to see that as a threat? India. India is going to see that as a threat. And that's why the balancing act of the heartland theory, who has the upper hand in the heartland and in Asia, is so incredibly important to world peace. Our final story today, I really wanted to get into this one. It actually came out over the weekend in the Post-Millennial. A new op-ed written by Ashley St. Clair. And it's all about the U.S. formula, baby formula situation. But it's a very interesting take on it that I haven't seen anywhere else. I urge you to go read this at thepostmillennial.com. Ashley St. Clair: I tried to warn mothers about U.S. formula in 2021, and Twitter fact-check it as misleading. What does that mean? A majority of people who use formula are unaware of the dangerous and manipulative propaganda that was pushed to make formula more mainstream than mother's milk. What does it mean? So it goes on in the op-ed. Ashley talks about how she just had her first kid, so she was pregnant last year, November of 21, and she was getting samples of Enfamil and Similac that was coming to her home, but she didn't even list anywhere that she wanted samples. She didn't even tell everyone that she was pregnant at first, yet she's getting these samples in because the companies already know, the marketers already know what's going on. So she wrote, after what some may see as an overreaction to some innocent samples, but she wanted to know what was in the formula that companies were already competing for the chance to be the product my child's life would depend on. I'm reading the op-ed. She said, I began to do extensive research on breastfeeding versus formula feeding and came to two conclusions: that breastfeeding is best and U.S. formula will never go into my child's body. Ashley writes, the decision was made that if I couldn't breastfeed, I would buy formula from outside of the U.S. Full disclosure, my wife, Tanya Tay, does the same thing. So we did both for both natural and formula for our two boys. But when we went to formula, we purchased formula from Europe. And it looks like Ashley did the same. Ashley wrote, the driving part for the latter was simple. The United States standards for baby formula are some of the worst globally. From preservatives to toxic metals to soy to corn syrup to recall after recall, I could not stomach the thought of replacing nature's nutrients with the addictive and harmful garbage we allow in our baby's most essential food. However, when she posted her tweets last year in September of 2021, look at this. This is incredible. Twitter slapped an official fact check on it through their Birdwatch service, stating, breastfed is best, but infant formula is a safe nourishment as an alternative, with a link to the FDA statements on formula safety. And this is really interesting. So Ashley later on gets into something called the Kennedy hearings. This is why I like Ashley, because she goes next level with this stuff. Nestle testified to the Senate during the Kennedy hearings in 1978 to explain why babies were getting sick and dying from their formulas. Even after the Kennedy hearings, there was little to no remedy or mediation, if I can talk, to big formula's propaganda experts. You would think that there would be more stringent oversight in the production and marketing of a product as crucial for the survival of millions of babies, but there wasn't. The lack of accountability for big formula is undoubtedly a key component in the 2022 formula recall that has led to this unprecedented shortage. Outside of federal regulation, who knows how many babies would not be drinking watered-down formula tonight had our physicians not made brand deals with these formula companies? Who knows how many mothers would not be scrambling to keep their infants alive had big tech oligarchs like Twitter not labeled warnings about U.S. formula as misleading? According to Market Insight reports, by 2026, the formula industry, this numbers will shock you, is set to be worth more than $98 billion. You're asking what's at stake? $98 billion. All right, and that is all the time we have for today. We're audio only today because I am on travel this week. I'll let you guys know what's going on about that a little bit later on, but we're audio only right now because we were on travel. What did we talk about today? The Buffalo, New York shooting. The fact the government, at least at the New York level, possibly at the federal level, we're waiting to hear more about that, knew about this a year ago. We talked about the New York State and Rifle Association fighting back in the Supreme Court for your right to carry concealed. We talked about the India wheat export ban and what that means for world markets, food riots, and we got into the baby formula warning and the writings and warnings of Ashley St. Clair. Excellent research that was done by her. That's all the time we have for Human Events today. Remember, as always, our promise, our oath, our solemn vow to you is to be good, be brief, be gone. Your homework for us, share this out with just one of your normie friends, and leave us your 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. But before we go, it's time for today's history break. Today, in 1920, Joan of Arc, the national heroine of France, was canonized by Pope Benedict XV. Remember our heroes. Remember our history. Remember who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?